I'm fully fired up. Let's make it happen.
Welcome back to the Fired Up podcast, where we help you get your together so you can make it happen. We're all about starting, growing and scaling. Do yourself a favor. Follow our socials and subscribe to our channels so you don't miss an update. Let's get pumped up for this episode. I sort of about 6 months ago, because with the custom buckles business, part of that process is the customers sending us their logo or images and saying, make this look cool. Like this is what the milestone is or the project is, and these are the key elements in the message. You go and design it. And we'd had this process of dealing with designers and sending the stuff off, and a day later, version 1 comes back. You're like, nope, that's not right. Send it back. 2 days later, like this. No, change the color. And this whole went on and on and on. And about 6 months ago, I put all the content into ChatGPT and said, here's the website, here's buckles, here's finished types. Can you put this together and make it like X, Y, Z? And what came back was okay. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. We might be able to use that in the future. I did this last month and put it in, and what came back blew me away. Yeah. Like the variations and the finished design of what it will actually look like when it arrives up was there on the screen. And that took me about 2 minutes. So to your point, I'm thinking, this process will no longer exist anymore, because now the customer will be able to put it, input it themselves within our website. It'll produce it for them and they can go, yep, I like that, approve it, and then we can get into making it. So it's going to improve the experience for them in terms of the efficiency. It makes us way more efficient as well. And it's like these little AI things are actually very valuable in helping us improve the experience instead of replacing it.
Yeah, it's the people that focus on that, though. I think that's the key thing, is it's not about replacing jobs, it's about improving experience.
Yeah.
And then what are the little human elements that actually you haven't had time to think about in the past that make a big difference? And that could be how you package the product when you send it to them. Yeah. It could be whatever it is. There's going to be little human elements now that, because your team can focus on the stuff that matters, because all of that experience now is being dealt with in a quicker, more efficient and effective way.
Cool. Let's talk about like mindset and strategy. Like, I know well before I even met you, and you're a lifelong learner. You love getting educated and learning things and conferences and stuff. Why is, I guess, mindset and self-development, why is it so important?
Yeah, I think I spend a significant amount of money every year. I always have a certain percentage of my salary and then the business income I've spent on learning. And I think for me, it's around, there's so much negativity in the world. You grow up in, particularly as Australians, the tall poppy syndrome. Anyone that's successful gets torn down here. And I think that's one of the challenges. So for me, it was around, I want to have a mindset of winning. I want to have a mindset that allows me to block out all the noise, to be able to filter out the noise and to be able to work out what's true and what's not. And just being around positivity just creates more positivity. And I think that for me, I've just always focused on the good. And, things are tough at times, and things are, they suck. Life's challenging at times. I've gone through a divorce. I've gone through some stuff that, while I was going through a divorce, I was building an offshore business, which was, growing at 50, 60% year on year at that point in time. Like, most people probably would have just folded over and broken. But I was just like, now's the time to win. And I think for me, it's just personal growth is, you don't know everything. Learn what you can from others that are a couple of steps ahead of you on the journey. And for me, it means investing in myself to become a better version of myself. And you can be a great role model to your kids, to your partner, to just everything. But for me, it was around, I just love to win. I don't have all the answers. I know that if all the answers are coming from within the business, then you're already in trouble. Like, that's the big thing for me. Is like, my first part of this was, I was in the financial planning industry, and I went to all the financial planning conferences, and all I ever learnt was what was coming from those four walls. And as soon as I started to go and learn outside of that, I started bringing in these things that our industry just weren't doing. Focusing on the customer and just a bunch of other things. And suddenly we started to kick everyone's butt. And I was like, hang on, if you follow what everyone else is doing, you're going to get the results that they're getting.
Right, yeah.
How can I get results that are just 10x what they're getting? I need to bring the ideas in. So the only way you can do that is to get out there and learn. And it's also, for me, it's around, I want to be hanging out with the people that are, 5 steps ahead of me. I don't want to be the big dog in the room. Like if you're the richest person amongst your friends and the smartest person in your group and you're the most successful, you're in the wrong room. Like, still be friends with them, but just go and find some people that are that far ahead of you that they inspire you, but they also scare the crap out of you. Because I can't ever be like them, but you will be if you hang out with them enough.
So you're essentially going, right, cool, allocating the time to the right things. But how do you source that out? Because someone listening to this, and myself as well, if I'm like 100% agree with you. Like if I want to go and hang out with people who are 5 steps ahead, who have had it, 10 years ahead in terms of their business and their growth, how do I actually get amongst that though?
The groups that you want to be part of, you don't know about, and you won't know about because they don't advertise.
Right.
But I think it's about getting in the room, and then that will create other rooms. So I read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. Mm-hmm. I reached out to him on social media. They got me into his coaching program. So I bought an $8,000 or $10,000 coaching program. When I was in that program, I then got invited to a 2-day mastermind with him. So I flew to Canada for 2 days and paid an exorbitant amount of money to be in a room with 20 other people like that.
Yeah.
From that, I've now been invited into masterminds with people that were in that group. I've also found out about other groups that I didn't know existed because some of these people are in those rooms. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, it's about once you get into the room, you'll find out about the other rooms.
Yeah.
And if you're a good person that people like and you're willing to give more than you're willing to take, you get invited into these things.
Yeah.
I joined Tony Robbins' Platinum program, and I know that you're just interviewing a good friend of ours, Mark Zed, and he was the one a couple of years ago that introduced me to that whole Tony Robbins world. So I went to the Platinum program. Again, huge amount of money, huge time commitment, traveling all around the world to go to the events. But through that, I met phenomenal people that I found out about all these other programs that I didn't know existed. So just get in a room. When I first started in business, I went to the local Chamber of Commerce. I went to BNI. I went to any of these networking things. The only reason I was going there is to build my network.
Yeah.
And then you get invited to other things. And as your business grows and as you become more valuable, then you'll start to get invited into different rooms. But I had to pay to get into the rooms.
Yeah. I think it's a good point, right? Because it's also depending on your journey. And I was going to take you back to the starts, but you kind of covered it. The Chamber of Commerce. Then once you've got a bit of money behind the thing, you start investing in the skill set or managing teams or financials. Was the real kind of substantial group, or when this get in the room with the people that will get you to the other room, was that with the EO group? Would you say that was the initial one that kicked things off? Yeah,
Entrepreneurs Organisation was probably the biggest, I suppose, commitment of money that I made. Before that, it was Chamber of Commerce, it was BNI's, it was low cost types of things. But EO was definitely a big investment of both time and money. And that was probably the first thing I paid for, where I was like, oh, this I need to get value out of because I'm spending, a lot of money on it. But that was probably the biggest lesson I went where, that event I went to with Dan, for example, it would have probably cost me 15, 20 grand by the time I fly to Canada. I was there for the 2 days, paid to go to the event. But I reckon I would have made, 500 grand worth of contacts and or money or ideas that I took from that and implemented. So, yeah, I think that initially it's just, well, what are the rooms that what are the skills that you need, or what are the networks you need to build? And that will really help. Like I've just joined another one called One Life Club. So I met Simon through the Tony Robbins. He built Culture Kings, $600 million exit. Just the guy's brain is incredible. And I joined it because all the founders are over $1 million. The average is, 10 million plus. It's just, but it's all about wellness, and it's all also about AI and learning. So for me, it was around, I don't have a lot of connections on the Gold Coast because I've been so focused growing a global business.
Yeah.
I needed some more locally. All the people that I want to be in a room with are part of this One Life Club. So I'm like, well, the only way I can get in that room is pay the money, get into the room, build connections. So I think that that's the thing. It doesn't matter how much you invest. I invest a lot more now because I'm able to. But when you're starting off, it's like, what are the rooms that you need to be part of, and how can you afford to get into them? Because you'll get your ROI every day of the week. I mean,
Yeah.
the great thing is these days is, you know, people like you, there's people like Alex and Mosey, a lot of the content is out there for free. A lot of people have got communities and apps like you do. And for me, it's like, join those programs. Like, that's the first level, is join those programs, get the value out of that. And if you outgrow it at some point, then you find the next one. But just get in a room full of people that are motivated.
Yeah.
And are either at your stage in the journey or ahead of you. Some people are going to be behind you, but they're the ones that you can add the value to the most.
Help from there. Yeah. And look, I think, again, it's important, right? You can start with books. The internet's full of free content. Look at the content, consume the content, but more importantly, do something with it. Like, implement something. And then when you've implemented it, then you can grow. Then you can utilize some of that growth to invest in the next thing.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that the danger with the internet being that everything is there for free now, and there are books, and that is, just make sure you follow people that have actually done it. Like, that's the thing. I mean, and people listening, you know, I can vouch for you. You grew our business. We're a $130+ million business, and you were a significant part of our journey. And, you know, I send people to you for coaching because you are one of the best at what you do. And I think that's the challenge with the internet these days, is there's so many people out there that say they've built things. Like, I read last week about a guy that exited for $180 million. And I did a little bit of digging around, and I found that his percentage of that was like 3%. So it's like, big dog story.
Yeah.
But he ain't got much of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, just, that's the danger. But I think that even for those people, they've still got a story, and you've got things to learn from, but really latch on to the ones that have got a proven track record.
Yeah.
And like you said, theory is great, but if you don't implement anything, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So take it and don't consume too much. Just consume what you need to implement. Yeah. And then move on. And some creators you'll outgrow. Like, there's some content that I've consumed, these creators' contents for that many years. I could probably do the content for them now, because I know everything they say, and I've probably gained all the knowledge I can from them. And so then you move to, well, what's the the next person I need to learn from? Yeah.
It's that cycle, isn't it? I think we could go back 10, 15 years, and it was like, Gary Vee. Yeah. It's like, oh, look at Gary Vee shit, and isn't he cool? And social media, I haven't looked at anything of his in probably 5 years, but I think it's also, that's a good point, because it's the self-awareness of, where do I suck that I want to improve on? And if it's like, well, it's relationships, cool, then get everything else off the table, find the best thing in personal, whatever, to latch onto to get it back on track, and then move. Just keep moving.
Yeah. And that was a big part of Dan Martell, to be honest. Like, where I never focused enough energy was with my wife. Yeah. Like, I was not purposeful with how we managed our relationship. It was more, you know, business, kids, travel, fit in our relationship when we can. And when I started watching Dan's content, the one thing I really realised and admired was how well he managed the relationship part with Renee. And when I went to the 2-day retreats with him and that, it was real, it wasn't made up. And recently, you know, my wife and I went to Hawaii for his couple retreat that he does. Yeah. And it was only because I found him and the way that he's been able to make it work that I've been able to apply those same things to my life. And I think that that's the key thing, is, though, find where you're lacking, and then find the people that are actually not just talking about it, but are really doing it. Yeah. And I think that's the key part. Yeah.
Hey, quick interruption. I assume you're listening to this because you are either starting, growing, or building your empire, and you are searching for the freedom formula. I want you to go and check out the Fired Up app. It's in the App Store, where you can dive into free course content and look through the course intros for paid content that'll be relevant to the journey that you're at. Don't delay, get fired up, go make it happen, and fast track with this business coach right in your pocket. Now back to the episode. With small business owners, because that's probably the majority of my audience, they're going to hit the same stumble blocks that you have, and it's like, it's too much work, so the relationship suffers. It's too much of this, so then the health suffers. And it does seem like overwhelmingly complicated, because you kind of have to go, well, which am I going to do? And a lot of arguments between partners can be, you're not here, you're not present, you're working too much, and your response is, well, I'm growing a business here. Like, what do you think it's going to take? So how do you get that balance, and what advice would you give to people who are in that position? Because it's quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I failed at a marriage, so I'm remarried. And I think the failed part was, a large part of it was I was so focused on the business and the kids that I didn't focus enough on the relationship. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's hard looking back now going, well, I was probably the big part of the problem. And the second time round when I remarried my beautiful wife, I was very clear with the way that I live my life and the values and what I want and how driven I am. And, you know, business is a huge part of my life, and I don't want to give that up. And so we had some pretty honest conversations while we're in the early phases of our relationship to go, look, this is the life. I don't believe in work-life balance, like 9 to 5 is work and then, you know, outside of that's family. I believe in just integration of life. And there's going to be times where I'm working enormous hours, and there's going to be other times where I go away, like I have 12 weeks a year on holidays.
Yeah.
So for me, it was around just having very clear rules and boundaries, and everyone buying into those and agreeing to those. And there's things that, you know, when I travel a fair bit, my wife doesn't necessarily like it, but now there's trips where she'll come with me so that, you know, she's not just, you know, left at home, for example. So the key thing for me was, and I wish I learnt this lesson earlier, was you just need to be very prescriptive. So I wasn't prescriptive with the type of business that I wanted to build. I wasn't prescriptive with the amount of money that I wanted to earn, because I always, and my wife says this to me still these days, she goes, Nick, every time you get to the goal, you want more.
Yeah. Like, there's another goal coming.
Yeah. Is that ever going to stop? Like, you earn a certain amount of money where you don't need to earn more money, but you then want to hit the next goal, which is like 3 times that, not for any other reason than the game. And I said, well, that is what I'm driven by. Like, that's the fun part of it. But what I had to learn is I had to balance it better. And I had to be a lot more prescriptive with what I wanted and why I was doing it, because I was doing it just for this game. And the problem with business is there's no start and finish line.
No.
It's always going. It's like the endless game. So when I got very clear on what I wanted and was very prescriptive around it, it made the decision making a lot easier. But then I also had to get buy-in from the family. I had to get, you know, buy-in from the kids that, you know, yes, I do work a fair bit, so I'm not always around, but we go on holidays that none of your friends can ever go on, and we do that because of the experiences that you'll learn and the real world experience that you'll get, and
quality time.
We get real quality time for 12 weeks a year, like probably too much time together at times. But I think that being so prescriptive is the only way to do it, because otherwise you'll just keep growing and everything gets bigger, more responsibility, more problems, you know. Your success, you win all these awards, and then one day you'll hit a wall and go, why am I doing this? Yeah. My wife just left me, or whatever it is. It's you know, so be clear and get everyone to buy in and get behind it. Yeah.
But it is, you can run a business and have a good relationship with your wife and your kids, and you can look after your health. Like, it's all possible.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And, you know, it's easy for me to say now that, you know, we were 4,500 team members and, you know, yes, but I've been doing this for 20 something years, but I only learnt the lessons in the last couple of years. And I wish that I learnt that over 20 years ago, because you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And there's times where your business will require more of you, and you're going to need to give that, and which means your family or your health parts of it will suffer. And there's equally going to be other times where your family needs more. Like, I know my kids are, like, my daughter's in grade 12 this year. My 2 boys are, you know, grade 9 and 10. So they don't need me much these days. Like, I heard a stat the other day that said most of the time that you spend with your kids by age 12, 75% of the time you spend with your kids by age 12,
gone.
Done.
Yeah. I think it gets about 90% by 18.
Yeah, which is
it's insane.
It's scary. But I look back now, and I was the dad that was at every school event. I never missed a school event. Like, I was always there. So during those times, yes, I worked a lot of hours, but I was always present for the things that mattered. And that was because, for me, I was very prescriptive at doing that. And I think that's the only thing, is that, you know, there's times where your relationship will suffer because you're not I traveled a lot, so I wasn't able to spend as much time with my wife. But then I doubled down when I was home to make sure that I did. So I think that don't try and get it perfect, because particularly in small business or when you're starting, and you can't have everything at once.
Yeah.
And just make sure that everyone that you love and that you care about and is part of the journey with you understands that, and communicate with them. The business is going through some pretty big stuff at the moment. It's going to require a lot more of me in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
But you can call me out in 2 months' time if I don't rebalance back, and I need you to be able to support me, that in 2 months' time, if I'm still doing the same thing, using the same excuses, we need to have a conversation. I'm not going to like the conversation you're going to have with me, but I need you to have it with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've given you permission to call me out on it. Do you have, I think Dan does this, but do you have that weekly or monthly kind of check-in with the wife around being on track and off track for the goals you want, for the time you want to spend to have these check-in conversations?
Yeah, so we do a quarterly retreat or getaway, so just the two of us for 3 days every 3 months. We try to catch up every week, so we have a weekly meeting on a Saturday. It doesn't always happen, but where we can, we definitely do. And it's definitely helped, because without that, the general admin of our life comes into the day-to-day. And that's where the frustration builds up. If I'm not doing the things that my wife wants me to do because on her time frames I'm not doing it, it becomes an issue in her mind. And to me, that's the last of my priority. I don't really care about that, because I've got other things that are more meaningful to me that I need to sort out. And there's a real misalignment. But in that weekly meeting, she can say, look, you promised to do this, this, and this, and you haven't. And I'll be like, well, these are the reasons why I haven't. It's not an excuse, but this is what my focus is at the moment, and this is where I need your support, and where can I support you and be a better husband? And that's tough, hearing where you're not being a great husband, you're not being a great father, but you've got to hear it, because otherwise you get caught up in your own little world.
Caught up in things. I've got one more question for you, but before we go there, you shared some great advice around, structure, discipline, hanging out with the right people. What would be Nick Sinclair's kind of top 5 recommendations or parting guidance for those that are wanting to incorporate change for things that they're not happy with, whether it's their business or life? What would be the top 5 things that you'd be recommending?
Yeah, the first thing is get a coach or a guide or a mentor. So, whatever community, whatever it is. I think that's probably the number one for me is get in the right community of people that have done it or are on that journey, so that you've got that support network. For me at the time, Entrepreneurs Organisation was a huge one. The Platinum Program with Tony Robbins was recently, there's been many pivotal parts in my life that's been that. So that's probably the big one. The second one is surround yourself with a team of amazing people, and only hire A players. And that's hard, and I know A players is thrown around a lot, but find people that will help you grow your business, that are passionate about your business like you. And I'm so thankful that you were on our journey, because we wouldn't be where we are today without the work that you did and I suppose the drive and ambition that you had as well. So find yourself and surround yourself with just an amazing team that will help and I suppose buy into the vision. That's a big one. The third one is become a better version of yourself. And if you're not reinventing yourself and you're not learning and growing and developing, then your business isn't going to as well. That's probably a big one. Fourth is, focus on you. There is only one you. And if you're not around, then your team, your family, your kids, your wife, they don't have what they need, which is you.
Yeah.
So if you're not looking after yourself, then you're not going to be around to help them.
Yeah.
So that's probably the big one. And the fifth one is just love what you do. Like, you don't have to have a passion for what you do, but you need to be passionate about what you do, which is a complete contradictory statement. But what I mean by that is that, I've worked with accountants for the last 12 years. Now, I owned an accounting firm. Do I love accounting? Hell no. But do I love helping people to make a difference? Yes. And I think that if you're passionate about what you do and you genuinely have fun at what you do, then turning up to work isn't work. It's actually turning up because you're building a life that you want to live. And I think that's the key thing is that, build a life that you don't want to retire from, that you don't want to escape from, because you wake up every day going, I get to do this I don't have to do this. And the quicker you can move to that, which is finding a passion for what you love, but the passion comes from being good at what you do.
Yeah, I love that. And I think also important to determine what success is, because that's going to change as well, right? Like for
100%.
for me at this point in my life, like I'm all kind of kids focused at the moment. So if a client came to me and said, I need 40 hours a week of your time, but I'm going to pay you millions of dollars, the answer would be no.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I need this time now. But that might change later when the kids aren't so dependent or they're kind of moving on their own journey. So I think work out what success is in terms of, is it business growth? Is it more time with the wife? Is it a combination of all those things? But be very clear on what it is so you can then point the path in that direction to get it. I will just say as well, like you mentioned around my involvement in the business early on, like, without that experience for me, this wouldn't exist. So I think it's really important for people to put themselves in an environment where they can be pushed, where they can level up, where they can get the education that they need. And I've always rambled on for years about go and work in the jobs where you're going to get the education.
Yeah.
Because it's the best business degree I ever got, and it didn't cost me 1 cent in uni fees. So make bold choices around putting yourself in the right environment to what you said, and then with the right people. But my last question for you is, like, does the world need more entrepreneurs, and does it need more people to start businesses? And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why not?
I think yes, only because it's the world I live in. I think we need more people creating more things, and I don't think we necessarily, and I think the way the world's going with technology and AI and that, I think there's going to be a lot more entrepreneurs. So the reason why is entrepreneurs think differently, they act differently, and they create things that no one else would even think about. Like if you look at lights or toasters or, you know, all the things,
everything,
TVs, everything, cameras, like everything that is here today is because someone was bold enough to go, what if? Yeah. And I think that's why I would truly believe that we need more entrepreneurs out there pushing the boundaries, because, you know, soon we'll be able to go to moon. We'll be able to go wherever in the world because of all the wonderful entrepreneurs that are out there trying to build all this space stuff. So for me, it's more entrepreneurs, but more people trying to help more people. And that's ultimately, for me, is entrepreneurship. Yeah.
How would you like Nick Sinclair to be remembered when it's all done and dusted? When people think about you and your name, what is the memory that you'd like to be covered?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I just want to be known as someone that inspired people to become better versions of themselves. Yeah. And that's always been a big thing I've said. When someone joins our business, they're at a certain stage in their life, but, you know, no matter when they leave us, whether it be after a year or, you know, 15, 20 years, I want them to be a better version of themselves. And that's how I want to be remembered, is someone that helped make people better versions of themselves.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time and joining us on the podcast. We'll leave some links below this episode so you can follow Nick on his socials and his journey. Mate, I appreciate it. Can't wait to do it again in the future.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks for listening to the episode. Please make sure that you like and share this content with people who need to hear it. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channels and following us on socials. Stay tuned for future updates where we bring on more guests and give you more insights so you can be fired up to go and make it happen.